are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm covering haunted places in the U.S. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media, ways to support the show, and friends of the show at the podcast page, the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO, paranormal.com, and go from there. A couple things I always like to mention for these haunted places in the U.S. episodes. I do this is I get a list of places for each state, usually between 5 and 10 is what I end up with, and get a summary of the history and the paranormal activity of the location, and include 2 articles for every location in every episode description, so you can all check out them more for yourselves, and also find out if and when you are able to visit them today, because information in articles is it can become inaccurate as things change. So, and I never recommend trespassing for any reason. So, and I will probably mispronounce names of people and places, and I apologize for that in advance. And that's happened before, and I'm sure it'll happen again. So, it's not intentional, but words and names can be hard. Getting to this first location, we are in Nevada right now, with the going alphabetical order of the states in the U.S. We will do other series on other places eventually. I might take a break from this format once the series is done. It's still gonna be a while, but maybe do some more of the Charles Fort stuff more often. But so we'll do other locations, other parts of the world, as long as I can find articles about them in English. But for now, we're just focusing on the U.S., and we'll go from there later on. This first location is the Bonnie Springs Ranch, and this is, of course, excuse me if I can talk. This is in Nevada. It was a long-running roadside attraction west of Las Vegas that blended Old West tourism, family entertainment, and local legend. It began as a ranch property tied to the 1840s wagon trail era, was bought by Bonnie Levinson in 1952, and later expanded into Old Nevada, a replica mining town with horseback riding, a zoo, a motel, and staged Western shows before closing in 2019. History. The land itself sits near Red Rock Canyon and was used as a stopover because of natural springs, first by Southern Paiute people, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, I apologize, and later by wagon trains heading west. Bonnie and Al Levinson opened the ranch to the public in 1952, starting with simple amenities and gradually building it into a larger attraction over the following decades. The Old Nevada section opened in 1974, and the site eventually became a popular family destination and event venue. Haunting claims. The ranch developed a strong haunted reputation while it was still operating, helped by its spooky Western town atmosphere, and later Halloween attraction, Bonnie Screams. Reported paranormal activity, lost my spot, there it is. It included a little girl said to haunt the schoolhouse, a merry-go-round that allegedly moved on its own, shadowy figures in the opera house, and disembodied voices in the wax museum. That's fascinating, because I've heard of that before with other wax museums. Local paranormal investigators and even television programs drew attention to the site's ghost stories, reinforcing its reputation as one of Nevada's better-known haunted places. Why it feels haunted. A lot of the ranch's eerie reputation came from the setting itself. Weathered boardwalks, staged hangings, that's not great, but okay. Mock gunfights, and an old town layout made it easy for visitors to imagine lingering spirits. The attraction also leaned into Halloween-style scare entertainment, which blurred the line between showmanship and reported paranormal lore. Those two are not exclusive, though, just to point that out. I've heard of haunted house attractions, not even necessarily built in a place that was said to be haunted, at least not famous for it, still having activity in them that the performers, that the workers there, experienced while working there, or basically while working there, being there, whether they're during or before or after performances. There's been reports of that in places like that. In other words, Bonnie Springs became famous both as a nostalgic Western stop and as a place people associated with ghostly activity. Present day. Bonnie Springs Ranch is closed and the property has been redeveloped rather than continuing as a tourist site. Even so, it remains a well-known Nevada haunt in both the historic and paranormal sense, especially among people who remember visiting before it shut down. I wonder what it's being redeveloped into, because I'd be curious if there was still activity there after all that was done. Sometimes you hear about that. Sometimes changing things causes activity. Other times it calms it down, it seems like. So, I don't know. I wonder which way that would go there. Next location here is the Pioneer Saloon in Good Springs, Nevada. This is an old West saloon that grew out of the town's early mining boom and became the social center of a once thriving desert community. Its haunted reputation largely comes from the 1915 poker game killing of miner, that's M-I-N-E-R, Paul Koski, C-O-S-K-I, and the 1942 Carol Lombard plane crash, both of which left lasting physical and emotional traces at the bar. History. Good Springs was developed around mineral mining and later boosted by railroad expansion. And Pioneer Saloon was built by Clark County Commissioner George, let me see here, Fayle? Not sure, Fayle, in 1913. Fayle also built Hotel Fayle in 1916, and together the saloon and hotel anchored the town's social life until the hotel burned down in 1966. At its peak, Good Springs had around 800 residents and a busy downtown with multiple saloons, stores, churches, and a theater, making it an entertainment stop for early Las Vegas residents, too. The saloon's original stamped tin walls and long-traveled mahogany bar are part of why it feels so preserved in time. Haunting lore. The most famous ghost story centers on Paul Koski, an unemployed miner who was shot in 1915 after being accused of cheating at cards. The coroner's report and the visible bullet holes are still displayed at the saloon, and staff and visitors have long linked these details to lingering paranormal activity. A second major haunting legend comes from Carol Lombard's fatal plane crash, in 1942 plane crash, on nearby Mount Potosi. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Potosi. Clark Gable waited at the Pioneer Saloon during the search effort, and the site still displays memorabilia from the crash, which has fueled reports, if I could read, of her spirit and a heavy, mournful atmosphere in the building. Reported activity. People have reported unexplained footsteps, cold spots, a crying female voice in the women's bathroom, and an old telephone that rings even when unplugged. One recurring story says a friendly old prospector appears near the bar in the late hours, while other accounts tie activity to Kowski and the Lombard tragedy. The saloon's reputation has been amplified by paranormal media, including Ghost Adventures, and by its broader role in movies and TV. That visibility has made it one of Nevada's best-known haunted historic bars, rather than just a local ghost story. What makes Pioneer Saloon compelling is that its ghost stories are rooted in real events rather than invented lore. You get a rare combination of preserved architecture, Old West history, a documented killing, and a nationally famous tragedy, all in one place. So, and that's where that one ends. I hadn't been aware of the connection between this bar and that plane crash. I've heard of that in other paranormal, sort of paranormal storytelling shows, shows on haunted places on TV. But I wasn't aware of that bar and it being sort of in a way connected to that whole tragedy, and in that Clark Gable stayed there and while during the search of the crash site. But that's fascinating that there's activity there. It is it's either way, whether there's documented possible reasons for activity or not. Both scenarios are fascinating to me because if there is evidence, then how does that work? Is it residual? What's going on there? If it's not, if there's in cases where there's a legend but nothing else, no actual evidence of someone that had passed away there or died near there, but there's still activity, that's also fascinating because again, how does that work? Why does that happen? So, and that's where I wonder about the idea of thought forms, where people throughout decades or a century or longer, or centuries in some places around the world, people talk about this legend, one legend or another, that may have just started as a story way back when, or a thought, or a sort of an attempt at explaining the identity or figuring out the identity of the paranormal presence in the location. And then over all that time, people keep hearing about that and thinking about it, and all this energy is dumped into this location, and whether there's a consciousness already there or not, either way, it seems like people end up having experiences with this presence. And I think in some cases it can be just all that energy combining and possibly somehow gaining sentience, intelligence. Other cases it may be something, someone, some entity that was already there that is literally taking all that energy and just the knowledge of the legend and taking the form of that, of whatever the legend says the ghost should be. So, all kinds of possibilities as usual. Now this next location, funny enough, this one and the next one, uh, we'll have time to get through them both, uh, have been talked about over on Troubled Minds Radio in previous shows. So if you haven't been listening to that, I recommend it. And so here we go. This next location is the, and I'm probably not going to say this right, Mizpah Hotel. This is in Tonopah, Nevada. Again, sorry about the pronunciation there. This is a historic 1907 silver boom landmark built as a luxury showcase for the town's wealth and importance. It later became famous for its ghost lore, especially the Lady in Red, and is widely promoted as one of America's most haunted hotels. Also, a funny thing about this town, from what I've heard, this is one of only 2 hotels in this town, and we'll get to the other one here after this one. History. Tonopah exploded after silver was discovered. Exploded? Yeah, okay. In 1900, and the Mizpah was built to serve miners, investors, politicians, and travelers drawn to the boomtown. Boomtown, if I could say it. Can't say it right. It opened in 1907 and was marketed as the finest stone hotel in the desert, with 5 stories, electric light, steam heat. These are, again, at that time, I'm sure, very much luxuries, and an early electric elevator. For a time, it was tied with the nearby Belvedere building as the tallest building in Nevada. The hotel later fell into decline as Tonopah's mining economy faded, closed around 1999 to 2000, and was restored and reopened in 2011. Haunting. The best-known ghost story is the Lady in Red, described as the spirit of a woman murdered on the 5th floor, often associated with rooms around 502 to 504. Guests report whispers, the feeling of a presence, and sometimes pearls left behind as a calling card. That's fascinating. Other reports mention phantom children on the upper floors and minor-like activity or voices in the basement. The hotel's haunted reputation is strong enough that it has been featured in ghost hunting media and has won reader-voted recognition as a top haunted hotel. What makes the Mizpah interesting is that its ghost stories are tied to a real, well-documented boom town history, rather than just folklore alone. That mix of preserved architecture, frontier-era glamour, and repeated witness claims is what keeps the hotel central to Tonopah's identity today. In other words, it is both a historic lodging and one of Nevada's signature haunted destinations. And that's where that one ends, as far as the summary there. And yeah, I'm fascinated by the pearls being left, because where are they coming from? I'd be curious if they were to be dated. What would the date, if you could do that, sort of figure out when they were, I don't know, formed, when they were arranged or whatever? I'm not sure, but I'd be curious if there would be any way to tell how old they were. Now, this next location, again, specifically, there was a show over on Troubled Minds Radio that I was on, and also the co-host of this show, Jen, the Arcane Observer, was on. We were both on there together with Mike and other callers. And so this is the Clown Motel in Tonopah, Nevada. I think we actually talked about this over on Ricky's show, Anything is Possible, as well. Once or twice, I can't remember now for sure. But anyway, this motel began as a 1985 tribute to Clarence David, whose clown collection inspired his children to build a motel next to the Tonopah Cemetery. And its eerie reputation grew because of that cemetery's tragic mining history. Its haunted fame comes from local ghost stories, reported footsteps, voices, moving objects, and a few rooms that are frequently singled out by visitors and paranormal shows. History. Tonopah's mining boom began after silver was discovered there around 1900, and the town soon accumulated a graveyard full of miners and plague victims. The old Tonopah Cemetery, opened in 1901, became the resting place for people tied to major local tragedies, including the Tonopah Plague and the Belmont Mine Fire. The motel itself opened in 1985, and its original theme came from about 150 clown figures left by Clarence David, the father of the siblings who built it. Over time, later owners expanded the clown collection and leaned into the property's reputation as a roadside oddity and horror destination. The motel was featured by Ghost Adventures, which helped make it a cult stop for paranormal tourists. Haunting lore. The strongest ghost story attached to the motel is its proximity to the cemetery, with many claims that spirits from the graveyard drift onto the property. One recurring legend says the clown figures themselves act as vessels for mining spirits, while reports from guests mention apparitions, disembodied voices, and unexplained movement of belongings. Room 108 is often described as especially active, and some accounts call the spirit there the trickster. Excuse me. Some of the most dramatic claims come from TV and tourism lore, rather than documented evidence, including a spirit box message and a moving clown hand reportedly captured during a Ghost Adventures visit. Those stories are part of why the motel is marketed and remembered as America's scariest hotel. The Clown Motel is unusual because it combines three things that naturally fuel ghost stories: a large clown collection, a cemetery next door, and a mining town with a history of death and disaster. Even people who are skeptical of the paranormal usually visit for the atmosphere, the oddball decor, and the strong sense of weird Nevada. Its reputation is less about one single haunting and more about layers of folklore, tragedy, and repeated retelling. There we go. And that is all the time we have for this episode. Thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.